Hi everybody, Eric here with Smart Pot Fabric Planners, back with another episode of the Growing Revolution Smart Podcast. And this week we've got Mike and Kristin from Fifth Season Gardening in Asheville, North Carolina. We've also got Ryan, who's their store manager at the Greensboro location. Their first store opened in the year 2000 in Asheville. Since then, they've opened several other stores in the area. They're one of the first hydroponic indoor gardening stores in the Southeast, and we wanted to get them on the show to have them talk about their journey and what they've seen over the years and what's on the horizon. So wanted to welcome you guys all to the show.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So Mike and Kristin, what were you guys doing before opening up Fifth Season?
You want to answer that?
So Fifth Season really actually opened in '99. Back then it was a little tiny 2,000 square foot store in downtown Asheville under the name Asheville Agricultural Systems. Of course, when it opened, we weren't involved. Mike came along as a part-time employee in 2002. And so Mike's journey began, just a few years into this company opening. We were not owners or on the ownership team at that point in time. I came on later. So I'm going to let Mike jump in and explain how he got started.
Yeah. So I was a customer at the store. And, back then, like I would walk into the store and I'd see the same, manager and a part-time employee. I was just buying stuff for my soil grow and it was such a young industry. Like what we're selling now is completely different than what we were selling back then. But Kristin and I started getting a little more serious in our relationship, started wanting to settle down a little bit. And she said, that place that you shop at is hiring. Why don't you go get a legitimate job? Because I was just a grower, always working like some part-time jobs. That's kind of how we met. Was working at a group home together with autistic persons. But
nice.
Yeah.
We were really, really young.
Yeah.
Some time ago. Yeah.
We all were a lot younger back in the day.
Yeah. Yes.
I had dreadlocks halfway down my back, and
nice.
And so out of a stack of about 50 applications, the couple of part-timers there, were really going to bat for me. They're like, we want this guy. Like he's just always smiling and always has good things to say.
And for all you kids out there, this is when $7 an hour was like pretty awesome.
Right.
Yeah, back in the day, right? So you guys weren't the original owners of the store. When did you get the keys?
So let's we'll get there. It's kind of an interesting story. So the original owner was actually living out in Colorado. Had somebody running the store back in those days for him. About a year or so into ownership, was kind of seeing some issues with who was running it, is the long and the short of it. Got his brother-in-law, who was an English professor, to come out to help him close up the store. Brother-in-law decides he's going to purchase the business without really knowing anything about what the heck is being sold there. He's walking through the shelves going, I don't know what this is, but I think I'm going to turn it around. Bought the business for, what was it, $1 was the story, and went through and, honestly spent the next 20 years learning how to do this. So when we came on as owners, and I'm going to jump ahead when I kind of say this, we came on as owners when the original Asheville store decided it was ready to grow up and go into a bigger location. So we'll talk about that transition here, but that is the point at which we joined the owners as partners.
Okay.
So we were never, it wasn't our business originally to start with. It's kind of that part-timer to part owner story.
Nice.
And and of course there was some expansion in those years too. So 2013 is when I came on, and really the reason for that was just that the location of the store at the time, if anybody's been to Asheville, it's went through a huge boom. And the area of town where the store was specifically, especially going through a huge boom. It made sense at the time that Mike and I's face was kind of pushed front and center. So I came on in this capacity of doing more almost like community relations and collaborations, and, really putting ourselves out there more in the sense of, events and also I guess the new store, the prospect of like expanding into a new store was on our minds at that time, which that happened in 2015. So we went from 2,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet. Of course, at the time, in the mid 2000s, the owners, Richard and Ashley, they had another store open up in Charlottesville, Virginia, and then out in the Chapel Hill area. Greensboro, Brian, I'm not sure what year Greensboro opened.
We've been here, it's been 17 years, because I know we've been in 3 locations, each one of those for 5 years.
Yeah, so, and then another little store in Raleigh. So the business as a whole was expanding. We were kind of more on the Asheville side, went from a small store to a bigger store, and we became owners at that time. So, it's always been a joint partnership, and we were just small part of that, ownership team.
Yeah.
But, anytime something is at least on your shoulders a little bit, it's incredibly, you treat it like it's
like your baby.
Your baby. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the history there. But yeah, I mean, that expansion project of going from this little store to the big store is when things really started to change the model.
Yeah.
I can't emphasize that enough. Of course, when the Charlottesville store opened and when the Scarborough store opened, they were already beginning to expand beyond the traditional hydro store model and into some of these other areas. And that's when the rebrand around being a urban DIY, 21st century urban DIY, and expanding into home brew and, tropical plants and pottery and all these other areas it kind of came at a necessity. I think, we started to see, especially out in Asheville, like this little store was like humming along for so long. It was like so easy to have these big days, with very little effort. It required very little presentation, to like have these big sales. And
those were the days when, it wasn't uncommon for somebody to come in cash in hand and want 4 lights and all the necessities to go with it,
When the West Coast legalized, we started to see a change though. And, there was a big movement. A lot of people left Asheville. A lot of people were following the movement out west. And the writing was sort of on the wall that if we didn't pivot and adjust as a company and diversify, it was going to be hard to stay afloat.
Yeah, so legalization out west caused like a dip in hydroponic sales for you guys as customers kind of migrated to what, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and California?
Yeah, the growers migrated, and then the ones that weren't maybe the greatest growers were just, I guess, recipients of the products.
I mean, also at the time, Asheville was changing. So, you're getting this little, kind of undiscovered city becoming more on the map. And with that comes a whole change,
Yeah, Asheville is like always on the list of like best places to live. I swear for the last like 20 years, Asheville has been on the list. And I went through Asheville once as like a teenager, and I just remember it was a really pretty town. Just, it seemed like an ideal place to live. So it makes sense. Yeah, exactly. I'm ruining the secret here. Sorry about
that. It's terrible.
There's no more secrets. It's out.
The cat's out of the bag. Everyone wants to move to North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Tennessee. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're coming. Yeah. I actually just moved to Florida from California myself, so I'm part of the problem. So
that answers your question. Was the store originally or initially focused on growing indoors in hydroponics? Yes, Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you guys
100%.
diversified into like other DIY products and projects. Like what are you guys selling now besides hydro
Well,
stuff?
I mean, I'll go back and say homebrew was kind of the first like ancillary category to come on. That seemed natural. There was a little homebrew section in the store selling grains and hops and yeast and at that time they would have displays, of basil growing and trade basil for slices of pizza at the local pizza shop or, yes, organic gardeners too.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't all just indoor growers. But continuing to diversify into like I was saying, the tropical house plants and the home decor, everything we have now, like wind spinners and bird feeders and, fairy garden items, like that all came with having more space to have that.
For sure.
Ryan's store in Greensboro still more exists under that former model. It's still very much, it's smaller, more focused on the indoor gardening side.
Yeah.
Y'all sold like 5 times the size of ours. So we could sell a small niche of indoor gardeners. That's kind of what we do around here.
That makes sense. What would you say your mix of sales is with like hydro products versus like everything else at the Asheville store?
It used to be half and half, but now I would say.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, you're comparing to apples to oranges because you got these higher ticket items, so volume and cost, that if you're just looking at it on a pie chart, soils and amendments, that whole category, outdoor gardening, still kind of holds the top spot. But as far as growth goes, we have seen, I can't even begin to tell you the amount of growth we've seen on houseplants and tropicals and home decor. I think that has a lot to do with just the popularity of houseplants in years with, Pinterest and Instagram and just everybody wants, plant people are just a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah. As people stop having kids, they're having plants now.
And there's like this middle ground as well. Like, as we're selling bags of Ocean Forest and Happy Frog to indoor growers, but just as many bags to the folks that are up potting their tropical plants. So that area is kind of fuzzy. It's kind of hard to say if it's, what direction those products are going in if you just run a report. For sure.
So there's a lot of crossover. What is your guys' typical customer looking like? Are they old, young, male, female?
You go, Ryan.
So again, I've been with this company 10 years now, and in the beginning, at our location, it was always those old school kind of hippie growers is what we used to see. Now I'm seeing a diversity of everybody, and especially even with I'm a little bit closer to Virginia than the Asheville store is, so they just had legalization back in July. So I'll have customers that are legit cannabis growers that are anything from 20s to 30s to 70s and 80s. I've dealt with a lot of older customers that this is their first time growing and just need information on everything. So in all honesty, these days I see a wide variety of everybody. You couldn't tell what anybody that comes in the store, what they're growing. And especially with springtime, we've got a lot of outdoor growers, a lot of raised beds that I see a lot of people that are buying different soils for, different amendments for. So in all honesty, we have just a wide variety of everybody that comes in our location.
Nice.
I would say that's probably true at the others. Here. Of course, I would say it's maybe that emphasized because the indoor growers are really kind of fading into the background now with our bigger locations, and that wasn't the case before. So they're fading, they more fade into the background, and you can't tell them from somebody who's coming in to get their gardens going. But then because we sell nursery plants and ornamentals and perennials and annuals, we're getting everybody from the established homeowner to the younger folks who are super into plants. And I will say that's pretty awesome to see so many younger folks. I can't tell you how exciting it is when you have a 17-year-old boy coming in excited to buy some cacti. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's
Not to generalize, but
those are
it's
going to
true.
be the lifelong customers. Ideally, that's get
Yeah.
them while they're young, like the cigarette industry.
Yeah. So, and then of course, the hobbies, they do cross over, but it is just so across the board. I mean, just about anybody you could imagine. And this might be a tangent, but of course, the last couple of years through COVID, that has even grown even more. I mean, we saw, obviously, we were right there at the heart of. We were open the whole time through COVID, and a lot of people were fearful that the supply chains of food were going to be changing, and everybody wanted to grow their own. Whether that ended up being moving from a place of necessity to a place of like, well, this at least just like got me through it mentally. This was huge. So we really we worked really, really hard during that time to stay open and to pivot and to be there for the community so that they could keep doing what they were doing. And but gained a lot of new customers, and honestly now I think we've got some new lifelong gardeners that started doing it during COVID, so that's really cool.
Yeah, the 2020 was a really busy, rough year for indoor garden centers and traditional garden centers. But it kind of seems like all that hard work is hopefully gonna provide us with a higher customer base of people going forward for the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I would just kind of that again, like the big thing there is that starting from indoor gardening and moving into more traditional gardening is a very different path than what you're seeing with a lot of traditional garden centers now trying to bring hydroponics and indoor gardening into their model. And that's one thing we've noticed is different about how we've entered into this whole industry. I go to trade shows now, and you see a lot of more traditional garden centers starting to bring in some of the indoor side of things, and that's awesome. But it is a different angle that we came at it from.
Yeah. Well, I really like your guys' marketing angle of, not only just hydro stuff, but other, honey making, home brewing, because somebody who's growing their own is also going to probably want to do other stuff on their own. So it just makes sense to have a one-stop shop for those types of people. And then, someone who's into cheese making might be like, well, I also like gardening, and these look like really cool products that I don't see at my, traditional garden centers. So, good on you guys.
Yeah, that was a response by necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Like that call to diversify was, economically driven. I mean, it's financially driven, but also it, of course, made sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So, I was wondering, how has the product mix changed from like 2000 to like now for you guys? Like, what were the popular brands and products 20 years ago as opposed to like today? What's popular in your guys' stores?
All right, so I may be the only one qualified to answer that one. So just before I started working at the store, like it was lighting systems, because those were the hardest things to come by. There was no Amazon. Nobody was shipping these things around, and nobody in their right mind wanted to have 250 pounds worth of ballast delivered to their home, because that's what they weighed then. So just before I came on, I know that the company was dealing with Diamond brand lighting. And anybody that's been in the industry long enough is probably chuckling as they hear this, because those things became notorious for catching on fire. So I think that was short-lived, and then whenever I came on, we were already selling Sun System brand lights, and there'd be like a row of 400 watt, 600 watt, and 1,000 watt ballast in both high pressure sodium and metal halide.
Right.
And these like, clunky looking reflectors that you could attach flanges to if you wanted to, and optional glass.
Reflectors that looked like satellite dishes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The old parabolic reflectors.
You got it. Yeah. We definitely sold those. But like some of the stuff is still like current, like selling 2x2 and 2x4, 3x3, 4x4 grow trays with the reservoir and the plumbing kits. Like none of that stuff has really changed, and as we have seen, there's like more fertilizer companies out there, and a lot more advances in the supplements that go along with growing our favorite crop. But that's what it looked like back then.
Yeah. I think up until maybe, I don't know, 2010, 2012, to me it seemed like stores made the bulk of their money on like hardware purchases, lights, trays, tents, stuff like that. And then I think around that time, for some reason, I think growers already had their equipment, so then stores started focusing a bit more on the inputs, the fertilizer products and soils. So
Right.
Nice. So when did you guys start selling Smart Pot products, and what are your, I guess, general thoughts on those products?
Yeah, if I had to guess, it was somewhere between like 2008 and 2010.
That's pretty much the beginning of when they were really cranking out in the retail side of things.
Yeah, it didn't take us long. As soon as we learned of the technology and like what the benefits were for the roots, it caught on pretty quickly.
Nice. What are your best selling sizes over there?
Tens.
Probably, yeah, threes, fives,
Sevens and tens.
tens. I use 15s here at home. That's kind of like I haven't moved to beds yet. I do have a couple samples of the beds that my rep gave me. Because I like to do the living soil thing. So I kind of determined that 15 gallons is kind of like the threshold for being able to pull that off. I've been working the same soil for about, I don't know, 10 or 11 rounds now.
Nice.
This is for legal hemp, not, yes, this is for
legal hemp.
We're in North Carolina, so this is for legal hemp. Licensed hemp grow.
Of course. I don't know what else it would be for.
Who knows?
Yes. We've got 4 30-gallon Smart Pots in our garden right now, each housing a different variety of potato.
Nice.
So that's been my thing. For me, not being an indoor grower, I can't tell you how fun it was and is to connect with customers that either rent their homes or they're kind of like, passing through, or they're, not here, but they want to put together a garden and they don't really want to invest in the infrastructure. So those 6, 8, and, the long beds, the 12-foot beds, I can even sell people on those. And they're just great. It's just such an easy sell to get somebody to buy, especially, those 8-foot long beds. That's been a nice add to our repertoire, is getting those in.
I'll make one more plug, and then I want to hear Ryan's opinion on this. But folks always ask me like, how durable are they? And I will tell you that I've had 2 Cascade hops, two separate pots, and I still, we've been in this house for about a decade, and I still haven't determined where I want to plant them permanently. And they have been growing in those pots for nearly a decade, and I can still grab the handle and like drag them around if I want to. So if that speaks to the durability, then
And yeah, I agree 100% with you, Mike.
that's been my experience.
I have finally ripped one. This is the first time, and we've got that 8-foot bed that was outside of the shop here, and we tried to move it from beside the building down to by our garden that we've put out there. So the problem is it's 8 foot long with all of that soil in there, and it had rained like 3 days before. So me and 3 other guys had to pick this thing up, and the only place it ripped was where I grabbed it with my hand on the top. But it's still live, it's still kicking, and we still got plants in it. So yeah, those things are durable, they last. I mean, I've got blueberries in them at my house for the past 6 years now. So I mean, they're solid. I definitely enjoy them. And
Yeah, I think that's probably the number one selling point that I try to push on smart pots is that they're going to last 2 to 3 to 4 times as long as a knockoff fabric pot. The knockoff might be cheaper initially, but when you have to rebuy that, as opposed to a smart pot that you don't, your cheap pot is now your more expensive pot. So be smart, buy a smart pot. And yeah, mine are like 6, 7 years old, and I feel like I could get another, 5 or 6 years out of them. You just wash them up, get the mineral deposits off, and they're good to go. But actually, I've been doing living soil like you.
We have a little pond in our nursery at the store, and so we used pond pots this year to plant some cattails. We got the hanging basket liners this year. We've been playing around with the colors. We've got orange, purple, blue now, which we didn't have before. So that's been fun to see who grabs those off the shelf. Those are always the wild people, like a little color in their life.
Especially those purple ones.
Yeah, the people who are about aesthetics are grabbing those new colors. Me personally, I don't care what color it is as long as it's a smart pot and it's growing me an awesome plant.
Yeah, I've had a few people that are, they come in looking for a ceramic pot. They aren't ready to spend the money on a ceramic pot. And I explain it to them. And usually if I say, it's just a black fabric pot, but I promise you your plants, it'll just kind of fade and disappear. And you won't even see that, but you'll see the healthy plants inside. And it's, they're usually like, oh yeah, I see that, and then buy it.
Yeah, there's two people in this world, people who have used smart pots before or, you haven't. And typically, if you haven't used it before, I was pretty skeptical on smart pots before using them. And my first one was a sample. And it took me a while to throw a succulent in there. But then when I did, it just did so much better than like the other succulent that I had like in a same size plastic container that I was just kicking myself like, why did it take me so long to use this?
Oxygen is important.
Yeah, oxygen to the roots is a limiting factor of growth, and that's why hydro and aeroponics grows such a fast plant. And I tell people you can get the benefits of hydro in a smart pot without all the hardware necessarily involved. Nice. So I read something online that last year the Cherokee tribe legalized cannabis for qualifying patients. What's the current status of cannabis in North Carolina in general? And does it look like medical cannabis is on the horizon in the state?
I'll let you answer that, Ryan.
So any kind of cannabis products in North Carolina are 100% illegal. There's no recreational, there's no medicinal, and the reason that at Cherokee they're on that Indian reservation, so they were allowed to grow some for their patients there just because the federal law there works a little bit different. Now, I've read a lot about this new medicinal bill, and it's, in all honesty, it's going to make, if it passes, we will be the worst state in the worst state in the United States if this bill passes. So what it does is right now we are decriminalized. So if you were to possess up to 1.5 ounces, it's a misdemeanor charge. You kind of just get a ticket for it. If this bill passes, number one, the only people that can get a card for it are going to be, AIDS, cancer, HIV, a debilitating disease to be able to get this, which I understand completely. That's fine. But they're not going to allow any caretakers, and you can't grow your own. So you're going to be a patient that has to be stuck buying this product from 1 out of 10 places that's going to be allowed to do it. And they have to be fully integrated, which means you have to grow this thing from seed all the way through flower, you process it, and you have to sell on site. And then once that's going to happen, the laws for any regular person that could possess it, you're looking at probably felony charges. So it's basically just setting everything back where we've gotten to right now. So, I mean, hopefully our legislators will understand that. We'll get in there and change things, especially when you go, 45 minutes up to Virginia from where I'm at, and you're allowed 4 plants for any person that's in this state. They're going to allow dispensaries to open up in 2024. And that's, fully recreational. So we're getting to that spot where every state around us is eventually going to have some form of recreational, some form of medicinal, and they're going to have to start seeing some kind of loss in revenue to kind of get their head out of the dirt to kind of understand where the cannabis plant's going.
Yeah, and we do have a store in Virginia, so we are seeing the difference between our stores, in lieu of that current bill up there. And it's honestly, that's a great bill for both the retailer and for a home grower. I mean, it's kind of the best case scenario.
It's what it should be.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, from what I understand of Virginia's law, it sounds like they really hit it out of the park on the first swing. Just going fully recreational, opening it up, letting people grow at home, but then also excluding dispensaries from, popping up for at least, 2024, I think, is when they can start?
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what it looks like, on the other side.
Yeah, so, it gives the little guy a head start over, big cannabis, which is ruining California for sure, and any other state they can get their hands on. Well,
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed. I always say, I voted against Prop 64 in California because it was a bad law. We already had medical in California. If you couldn't find it, there was really something wrong with you. And Prop 64 it's ruining cannabis in California. I saw it coming, and I really hope that North Carolina doesn't pass this law because it sounds like a bad law. So hopefully they scrap it and go back to the drawing board.
This is coming on the heels of us moving from our state pilot program for hemp to that being turned over to the USDA. So, all of us, within the fifth season, we've been working with a hemp permit for the last couple years. And that has allowed us to grow hemp inside of our stores and engage in conversations with people about it. And then, of course, sell the product as well, which we've just, we've been keeping it just to boutique, indoor flower. And people want it. It's just like, our customers aren't the people that you might think. They are truly the people that don't want to get high. They want to
feel good. They want to feel
benefits
relief.
of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been proved as
so.
I mean, it really has with all your different cannabinoids, with your CBDs, whether it's CBGs, CBNs, each one of them, whether it's for insomnia, for inflammation, for pain management, and it can keep you from getting high as well. So that's what I do say that with a lot of our customers too. It's like there are so many benefits to this plant if you're not just trying to be that, stoner person, there are a lot of benefits from it. And I just feel that, I don't know what's with North Carolina, but it's like any other, institution where you have to find a way to capitalize how much money you can make off this. And what drives me crazy is you're not going to allow a patient to grow their own plant, which just boggles my mind when you put it to that reality towards it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hopefully, hopefully smarter people prevail in the States, and they are looking north to Virginia and just seeing how well they're doing with it, and have a change of heart and get their heads screwed on straight. So
that's right.
So talking about problems, what are your guys' biggest headaches as hydro store owner operators?
I'll answer that. I put some notes aside on that one. So, of course, in recent years, we've been grappling with supply chain issues, which, kind of doesn't really apply to Smart Pots being U.S. made. That's been our one of our trusty vendors, honestly.
We were struggling during the pandemic.
I know
Initially,
you're
like
struggling
the
to keep
demand
up,
just
but
skyrocketed for us.
but your product wasn't stuck at the ports,
Very true.
like, so that has been, that's forced us as a company to respond to how we go about purchasing, and it's taken more time than ever, to make sure that, like, if we can't get something, we get a replacement, and it's a lot of time and energy. And then, of course, with that too, with freight costs fluctuating and changing so much, we're constantly having to look at our costs and adjusting our prices, and that is, it takes away from interacting with our customers, and it's just a lot of work, and we're not necessarily built with a lot of extra resources for that. So, this is a lot of just spending time doing it outside of store hours and looking at all these things. So that's been a challenge. Brick and mortar in general is a challenge. And, I think in order to be I don't think this goes, I don't think this is news to anybody, but like brick and mortar in some sense is dying. And in order to be relevant and to stay relevant in this day and time in brick and mortar, you have to provide a couple things. One is the experience and the expertise. One is going to be, just something that doesn't ship well, which thankfully we're also in that market. Soil and birdseed don't exactly sell well online. But, we've survived almost like a industry like that has gone very digital, and we're constantly having to pivot, and I think I've mentioned that word a couple times, but adjust to how to stay relevant. And that's on the marketing side, which is my job. That's on the hiring side and the personnel side, with who we bring in to help be in our stores and be the face of our stores, who manages our stores. So that those are all challenging pieces to me.
And what
you got, Ryan?
I was gonna say, what I found most is knowledge, because a lot of my customers, they tell me like, hey, we can buy this online, but I don't get to talk to you about what my issues is, what my problem is. I can physically see what you have in your store versus just trying to buy something online. And that's what I feel like really helps us a lot here, is just, talking and knowledge. Because I feel like a barbershop sometimes. Like, I'll have some customers that just want to hang out here for an hour and just talk about their grows, because who else are they going to talk to about it with? Their wife doesn't want to talk to them about this the whole time, so like, you can sit here, you get to have conversations with everybody. So that's what I feel helps us out a lot.
That's kind of the same thing that I was going to say. Through the years, I feel like the first wave of, like, Amazon shipping Hortilux bulbs and things like that, like, it hurt, it really, because it was such a new thing, and folks were like, oh my God, the price is just like, I have to buy it for cheaper. And so that
now
was
LEDs.
That was really frustrating. But now I feel like I have more of those folks that have learned to appreciate that brick and mortar, because that relation, they've discovered that relationship is important. That you can go to that brick and mortar and talk to that guy that is going to give you the same advice that he gave the last 3 customers, because it's tried and true. And, you're not having to filter through, 3 or 4 different forums online where you got these jokers telling you this and that.
Or not taking your warranty product back easily.
Very true.
Well, right, that. So,
nice. Yeah, that is the big advantage for the brick and mortar stores is the experience and the knowledge, 100%. And I think the stores that have focused on that are the stores that are still around and are thriving, and those that haven't have gone by the wayside. Now, hydro stores are pretty funny places, or they can be at times. Do you guys have any funny stories, like from the years of either customers or crazy things that have happened, just to kind of wrap this interview up on a light, funny note?
Yeah, I will share one that I was asked to share. When we were young as a company, we were already sort of like tapped into our community, and people were like, not only supporting us, but they wanted us to support them as well. And I occasionally get folks that come in with their own products. And this is one that even Richard, the original owner, would share because it's pretty funny. But I had a customer who was going around to the pet groomers, and she was bagging up the dog hair and packaging it as a product called Doggone Rabbits.
To keep pests away. It was supposed to like repel, groundhogs and stuff because they smell dog.
She really, really was pushing that we carry this product to the point where I agreed to take a few on as a consignment.
He still hasn't let that down.
Yeah. Those were in my softer days. I'm a little more rigid now.
So did you try the product out? Does it work? I mean, because in theory, it kind of makes sense to me.
Dogs around here, so we didn't need to.
Nice. Yeah, I'm dealing with snakes in my yard. We got the garter snakes, but also I've been finding some water moccasins coming in there, and honestly, spreading some dog hair around my yard might repel those things. Or
go for the sulfur.
Yeah, you need some sulfur, dude.
I've heard that, but I'm afraid it might wash away in the rain. Does it last for a while?
I don't know.
The snakes don't, so it's worth a try.
Yeah, better than getting your kid bit by a snake.
No doubt. Yeah, water moccasins are not fun.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's also just, historically, things were so different, and we would have, customers coming into the store, in like full on disguise.
Yeah. My favorite customer name to this day was Latex Bob, because he would wear his hat very, very low, and he would wear latex gloves. Cash would already be like sort of pre-counted. He did not want change. So
he's the uber paranoid grower.
Yeah. He took it to the next level. He would take his plates off, park up the street. But I will say he was probably one of my longest running customers through the years.
Yeah, and every year at our Christmas parties, it was like, we're here because of people like Latex Bob. Like, let's not forget that, like, we made it another year. Thanks, Latex Bob.
Yeah. So do you guys have any other funny nicknames for customers besides Latex Bob? Because I know a lot of hydro stores have funny names.
So honestly, we've had a loyalty program running for the last 10, 15 years. And honestly, the majority of the customers for so long have been under an alias name.
Yeah.
You don't have to give us your information. You don't have to give us anything. And so do we have customers with funny names? We have hundreds of customers with funny names. But, in recent years, in the last couple of months, honestly, we've just completely revamped our loyalty program. And we're now kind of requiring like a phone number and a legit name. And, Ryan will say like, I'm not sure about this, how people are going to respond to this. But I think that those days are sort of over. And as a, legitimate business, like, we're kind of doing away with that as well and feeding into that paranoia that kind of doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan? You got a...
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Ryan, I was going to ask, how about you? You got any stories from the store?
Yeah, so my favorite one was from about 5 years or so ago, and it was a couple newer growers in there. Like, one of the guys he knew what was going on, and he brought his buddy in there, and we had a cloning machine sitting up on the front counter, and he was looking at that, and I was showing him how you put a plant in here, it creates roots, and he looked at me, dead serious, not joking. He's like, so if I cut my finger off in there, I can grow another finger back? And I just looked at him like, you're being serious with me right now, right? And he's like, yeah, man, can't we do that? And I was like, all right, man. It's like, that's not how biology works, my friend. But that was my...
you should experiment on that at home. Exactly. I'm not here.
I got one. One time somebody held up a quart of bud candy, and said, "Is this what you spray on the plant to give it the
Oh
crystals?"
my goodness.
You know, it sounds really stupid to ask that, you know, because we know, but, you know, I could see from his perspective, if he has no, you know, knowledge, you might think, well,
Sure.
oh yeah, that's just like sugar on the leaves, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
called
Yeah.
sugar leaf, right? So it's sugar.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Good
all that
stuff.
Oh
aside, I
man.
mean, we could tell funny stories honestly for days. I think we all just could keep them coming. But you know, we really do have we have really great customers, and you know, I can say that working in retail can sometimes be, you know, it's retail, and I'm just grateful that, you know, the products that we sell, smart pots, everything that we're about with our whole model, honestly, is feel good work to sell it. And I can't tell you how sweet it can be, you know, when you sell a houseplant to somebody who's memorializing their dog, or somebody who's come back and told us that our advice on their first year growing tomatoes was awesome, and they got to like give those away to their neighbors. And like, you know, it just feels different than selling t-shirts or something, you know. And so there's the funny stories, but the fact of the matter is, for retail, it's got an aspect of feel good work in there too.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about the customer when it
About the
comes to the retail
relationship.
store. And, you know, as long as you stay focused on them and provide them with the products they need and, you know, that interaction, they'll keep coming back. So it's, you know, a testament to you guys that you're doing it right, that you've been, you know, open and thriving for so long. So nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So where can people get in touch with you guys? You guys are on Instagram. Any other social sites? What's your handles on there?
Yeah, so because we're a multi-store business, each of our stores has a slightly different Instagram handle. So Fifth Season Gardening will be the main. We have FS Asheville, um, FS Greensboro. Um, we have the Charlottesville, Charlottesville. Of course, you can go on our website, fifthseasongardening.com, scroll to the bottom right corner, and you can click on each individual store. You can kind of capture. We actually have an online store as well where people can purchase things to ship. Of course, there's a link to Facebook, so we've got the Facebook as well. And, you know, kind of keep an eyes out for other continued ways that we're reaching out. So Ryan's got a YouTube channel that's super
I
educational.
do, yeah.
Nice.
We
It's
love
called
that.
Growing with the Beard. And I actually do stuff where I'll break down just like elements, like, you know, what's alfalfa meal, what's bone meal, how do you use these, how can I apply them to my garden? And I also do on the hemp side, let's say you have like a nitrogen deficiency, I'll actually show you what a leaf is. How do you fix this? Here's a calcium deficiency. How do you fix those? So it's all mostly educational. You can use them, you know, indoors, outdoors, in your garden, anywhere that you really want to apply that.
Nice. Nice. Knowledge is power, and you know people are gonna, you know, take that, use it, be successful, and hopefully, you know, buy more products from Fifth Season. So, on that note, Mike, Kristin, Ryan, I wanted to thank you guys for your time joining us on the podcast, and then also for being great dealers for Smart Pot products. I always say we can't do it without, you know, the dealers who are getting it to the end users. So wanted to extend a thank you to you guys for being great supporters over the years.
Yeah, no
Awesome.
doubt. Yeah, this has been
Thank
fun.
you.
Eric, thanks for, sorry it took so long to kind of link up, but
Hey,
we did
better
it.
late than never. Yeah, we've been talking for a while about you. You guys were on my initial list of people I wanted to interview, and so I'm glad that we finally got linked up. And
Thanks for having us on, Eric.
yeah, I'll be following you guys' progress on Instagram and keeping in touch that way. So again, wanted to thank you guys for your time joining us on the podcast here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric.